Hello again, this is Minicoder coming back to you with a new series. This series is going to be about MVC or Model View Controllers uh, design pattern. Specifically, we're going to follow the ASP.NET MVC paradigm. As you can see, as I have it up right here, MVC or Model View Controller is a particular design pattern. For those of you that did not know, it is not specific to ASP.NET is not even specific to the web, although it hands itself well to the web because the main piece of what you're doing is via a controller. You are separating the view that the user sees and the data that creates it. So, in fact, as you can see here, there's a whole list. When I just Googled it real quick to show you, there's a whole bunch of different frameworks and technologies technologies that utilize the MVC design pattern. So this tutorial is not going to be any code. All I wanted to do was have this little diagram that I could show everybody. I will save this diagram so that in the future we can reference the diagram as we go through the different pieces of our application. One thing that, let me just see something real quick here. Let me do this. If I go here like this, and then can I two back, and let's make it dotted. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So I'm doing this on the fly a little bit. By the way, if nobody has ever used this tool before, this is the first time I've seen it. Draw.io, fantastic tool, way better than Visio. Just saying. Anywho, I drew this line because I already had recorded this video and I was not liking how it was coming out. And one of the things I was juggling with trying to be able to explain is what side matters as far as the servicer or what your control is versus what you may not have control over, and why we want to break it up as much as I've broken it up here. So the first thing is the view model. The view model contains the properties. It can have methods, but generally speaking, especially from a purist point of view, and even a non-purist point of view, the view model is just that. It's the model that dictates what's on the view, what shows up on the page. So, like if you were to have an employee edit record page, your view model would model exactly what you want editable on that page. So like the first name, the last name, the middle initial, the age, their title, their department, anything like that, you'd want properties of that inside of your view model. You can have override methods. You can have some pieces that may or may not be there as far as methods that do validation, but you really want to try to stay away from that. And as we progress, you'll see why. Then you have your view. Your view is the actual, like I showed here, it is the actual HTML document that we spit out to the user. Nothing more, nothing less. Everything else happens behind the scenes, whether it be in the view model, the controller, the servicer. The view itself is what gets displayed to the user. Now, a lot of times, with using different JavaScript languages and different functionalities, you can make it so that the view is pretty bare. However, the way we'll do it, at least initially, is we'll use Razor syntax, which immediately, by the time it gets rendered and pushed to the browser as HTML. There's no JavaScript afterwards. You can, but for right now, just look at it as it's all pre-built code. Now there's this thing in the middle of the view and the view model called the controller. The controller is the gateway between the view model and the view. What the controller does is it has this thing called routing, and let's say you have a site called portal.intranet, right? Or portalintranet.com, right? And within there you have portalinternets.com/employees, right? Employee directory. The controller may have a route, which we'll go over later, that says anything that comes into my site, which is the portalintranet.com, and slash employees will build this view. And then what happens is when you do return view, which is a method, inside of that view method you can pass it in a view model that's pre-filled with data. So the controller will look up to the view model and say, hey, I know about you, let me go get data about you, and then once I get the data, I'll pre-fill the view and push it out to the user. So now when the controller makes that call or gets that request, it'll have some kind of information about where it needs to get its data. Usually you want your controller to be pretty clean. It shouldn't be more than a couple lines of code, mostly for validation. Most of the actual data or actual data manipulation or data retrieval should happen at the very least in a servicer. And actually this should really be like right there. I'm getting a little nitpicky, but let's go with it, and I'll explain why in a minute. So the servicer will actually request data from the repository. Now that repository, the reason I have this divided line here is that may be a direct entity framework hook, it may be a SQL data hook, it may even be a web service, you don't know. But in any case, no matter what it is, I like to try to make sure I have some kind of converter. You can almost look at it as like an adapter pattern. There's many utilities out there that will do this for you. There's one called AutoMapper that if you tell it the DTO and its matching model, the two concrete types, it will map one for one as long as the names are the same. So that's actually nice, but you can also make your own converter class if you don't want to have the overhead of some of the reflection that comes along with that, and you don't have a lot of objects to deal with. I know that's a mouthful, but for now, you could look at it as, let's say that, let's go with the same example we had before, where this whole site was for an employee intranet. And we were going to the employee directory. Well, you might want to get it from either the ERP system or Active Directory. Well, either one of those probably has a service that you request data from, and it might not be a repository, it might be a web service. You might not even have access to the data store, and then you're gonna get a lot of data back. Most likely, you probably won't get. You'll either get too little data or way too much data than what your view model requires. So what you'll do is your servicer will get that data back, and then I'll push that data back into a converter. And a converter class will then convert it to the model that you want it to be, most likely mimicking this, and then it will push it back into the servicer, which the servicer will then hand it back to the controller. And it'll hand it up in a nice package with it being a list or a singular view model. So really this will probably be convert to view model, like that. And instead of model, let's just go with DTO, because it could be a model, it could be a DTO, a data transfer object, it could be another model, an entity model. For all we know, we don't know what it would be. So sorry, I'm being a little anal about that. So, and then after the controller gets it, repackages it, it passes that into the view builder, which is the Razor engine. There used to be an ASPX. I don't think anybody even uses that anymore. So we'll build it into the Razor engine, and then I'll spit it back out as HTML, and it will push it back to the requester. So I hope that kind of made sense. I'm going, like I've said before, I'm going to be saving this document so that we can reference it in other locations. That way, while we're going along doing other tutorials within this series, I can point to, okay, so this is what's happening within this section right here of the controller, and this is the view model, and blah 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 blah. And we'll see as we get to this part. What I might do is I might use Entity Framework as our data layer. I think that might be a little cleaner than trying to start up a web service. And then I can always split it off into web service at some point if we want to, just to show you how making this servicer in the middle really makes it much cleaner and easier to deal with, and not letting the controller have any knowledge, any intimate knowledge. It really separates. I'm sure you guys have heard it before, and if you haven't, please get to know, love, and live separation of concerns, because that will be your bread and butter moving forward to making great applications. So, with that in mind, I'm going to stop here, and I will start off next tutorial in the series will probably be I'm probably gonna create a new application, show you how to do that real quick, and then we'll go into just at least building a basic view model, controller, and view, so that you can see the whole thing come together, and then we'll work backward. I think that sounds good. Yeah, I think we'll do that, and then we'll probably work back to front, so that everything just kind of molds together. Alrighty, I'll play around with the videos and see what makes the most sense. So you leave that to me. In any case, I hope everybody enjoyed this thoroughly. It is about 8 p.m., so I'm going to shut this down, and we're about at 12 minutes anyway, and couple days I'll have a new video for you guys. Alright, thank you very much everyone. You have a great night.